Okay, welcome back to part 3.
Hello. All good things
So,
come in threes.
yes, we got a nice 3-part series now. And I guess in part 3, we can draw to a
Go, go.
conclusion.
I was just reaching for my notes, what I made earlier, in
You
case we ever get to those.
So, where are we up to? What were we talking about?
I forgot which sort is that?
Yeah, it was kind of the powerlessness that we feel in the face of historical events when they are. I think that's part of the brainwashing that we've grown accustomed to, is that we as non-elite are simply pawns at the mercy of historical events. And again, we want to question that and say that's really part of what could possibly be, we could possibly be on the brink of, is where we are not just that anymore. And I think part of the positive side of social media and technology is that we can get messages out. Okay, you can counter that and you can say, yeah, but you're just in your little bubble and it's just you and the people who you're linked to on Facebook. And okay, yeah, but that's,
We're still talking.
yeah,
It's not
that's,
me on my own.
yeah, and people are, we are in a platform where people can engage in debate and people can hear what we say and they can get in touch, and if they're interested in the initiatives that we are talking about, or even if they're inspired by anything that we say, they can get in touch and be part of something. And I think that is something that was not possible, was not there. It's something maybe we experienced a little bit in the early 90s, when we were kids, going to the raves and the sort of counterculture, that you could live a life with different values. And I'm not just talking about dropping out and taking ecstasy and stuff like that. I'm talking about that there was something positive in that, where people could be together in harmony and meet people, share ideas. But again, it was not a political, well, it's a question,
It was social, shall we say, because it was people getting together saying, we don't like what's going on, what alternative can we do?
Yeah,
Can we do something on our own that we're more into? It was very sort of ultimately limited, and couldn't really go anywhere beyond partying. But it was that what we felt inside ourselves. It was the only way we could find to express that, until we kept on with that seeking. And then we came to something like anthroposophy that touches you to the core, whereby it's not all about people splintered in separate different groups. We're all part of one thing, and we all tap into that one thing. So no one set of people can have a monopoly.
yeah,
Everybody is part of the whole thing. And when you sort of start from that basic thing, it's a very different outlook.
yeah. And I think part of the great potential of anthroposophy is to give people concepts where you can talk about these things.
Yeah, it's a modern.
Even just bringing back talking about humanity, yeah, not in terms of like humanism, but an understanding of humanity as something that can be worked into new social systems. This is again something that has been left way behind. It's like, what are you talking about socialism? Are you talking about communism? No. Yeah, you're talking about an alternative but not going back to those old models, something that would work. And again, we're getting into like threefolding, but even that, from anthroposophy, the idea that you have a threefold system, that you can start talking again about culture. Yeah, politics has disappeared. Real politics it's become sound bites and propaganda. And to bring back to the table questions of humanity, culture, morality again. I mean, where's this gone? Morality. To say to a CEO or something who gets a £700,000 bonus, and they're pumping sewage into rivers and seas, and to say, well, this is a moral issue. And they say, well, what are you talking about? This is the market. They say this is the market. You don't argue against the market.
Yeah, this is a jungle. These are the fruits, and we've all got to fight for them. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's as
coming
far as
back,
we've got.
I think this is what made us a lot of us angry. You know, when we were growing up, and all you maybe weren't able to articulate it, but I used to have blinding arguments with my dad, and I'd say, well, what's it all about? Shopping? Is that, what's life all about? Is it just about shopping? And I couldn't. Again, it's about something that lives in your feeling life. And again, that's something that you
At
find
first,
the words to express through
yes.
anthroposophy is to say, this is something that lives in my feeling life. I don't have to be shy of saying I feel a sense of morality and duty in my feeling life, and that is something about what it means to be human. You've changed your
I'm trying to, because I keep disappearing in the blur. So, but it still blurs. It's based on the blur. You're sitting very
I was
still.
struggling with that in the beginning for a bit because I was finding bits of my head getting chopped off, and
Yeah,
I've managed to get to a position where
you have to sit
I've
still like
assumed
that.
a certain posture.
Okay, assume the posture.
I'm maintaining my form. We're a bit like Obi-Wan in when he gets struck down by the lightsaber, and
Flump, flump. His clothes drop to the floor.
exactly.
So yeah, and what is left after that material drops to the floor? That's what you were getting at. This what are we, the human?
Well, exactly. I mean, are we Obi-Wan? Are we the Obi-Wan ghost who is supposed to just float around and say, motivation?
Use the force.
Yeah, motivate Luke. Is that the idea in the Great Reset, that we all float around as Obi-Wan? And I mean, I've heard this also in anthroposophical circles, like, oh yeah, well, do this, that, and the other, and you can, your body can be like a little, you just move it from place to place, and you're Obi-Wan in the background, like giving motivational, inspirational quotes.
Creepy.
I'm samurai.
Okay, good. Maybe it's
I've got an active imagination, No, but I think it's an important. You could go deeper into that. There's a lot of wisdom in Star Wars. Like, are we Obi-Wan or are we Luke? I mean, Luke is the person who is treading the path. Yeah.
And who is the Darth Vader in us?
Yeah, and there's all these things. I think we grew up on this. I sort of thought Star Wars when I was 5. It's incredible. Not a good anthroposophical upbringing, but to sit in the Odeon Hammersmith and watch Star Wars. But
Richard, come on, anthroposophical upbringing. Stop talking about a cult. Do you know what I mean? There's a human being is a human being. Do you know what I mean? There's no anthroposophical upbringing except in a cult. You
in a
know what I'm
cult,
saying?
in
Yeah,
a cult, yeah.
in a cult. Like we were talking about a guy
I know, but this
earlier.
is, I mean, this is this is an interesting, aspect of anthroposophy as it lives in the world. That you have people who are born into anthroposophical families and they went to Waldorf schools, and you would instead of painting, I spent a year painting X-wings,
Yeah.
drawing X-wings like blowing each other up,
Yeah,
and in a
me too.
Waldorf
Me too.
school you paint bears with auras, yeah, like.
Yeah. Well, I just grabbed this because I had to quickly grab something from the computer, and this isn't my computer. It's not. There's not much there. But I came to anthroposophy out of color, out of painting and art. So, do you know what I mean? For anyone, really, it should just be an extension of their personality, not a clothing to wear. And like everything good. Do you know what I mean? It gets branded and sold and traded and bought. It's a
No, it's
shame.
true. I mean, there's something in between drawing. I mean, again, you can say something for me very uniquely. That kind of obsession with Star Wars was very important for me, and it's lived with me my whole life. But also like Tolkien. These are deep images that stay with you spiritually. I believe in your feeling life through your whole life. And
The battle against the Death Star. The
yeah,
Death Star. The
yeah.
you know the Earth that is to become a star could be turned into a Death Star. Well, everything has to die in the end. Everything that comes into manifestation has to go in the end. But the question is, how it gets there and what one's involvement in it is.
But I'd like to come back to this, the 100 years topic that we picked up on, just to bring that full circle,
Well,
because
that's why I mentioned the Death Star, because this technocracy, it's very much wants to convert the whole world into an inanimate digitized object. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
and I
They
think
want to
this is
replace the real world with that because
exactly. So
it's
I think
easy
this
control.
100-year, if we look at that Christ cycle, so we have the 1920, 1922, and then 33 years after, an Easter-like return of 33 years. And then coming up to the present time, you have full summer at 66 years. And then you have the time we're at now, Michaelmas, as the 100 years. And you then look out into nature at this time of year and things dying away, but consciousness then rising for what can come as a new impulse on that 100-year anniversary.
The
So
reaping of the fruits, the
the
reaping
reaping
of the
of the,
fruits of nature.
if we can recognize it, if we can perceive what it is, that would be a completely new step along the directions that Rudolf Steiner laid the groundwork for in 1920, 1922, can we feel those things now? Can we sense them in the air? A bit like the Northern Lights around me. I mean, can we pluck that out of the air, out of what's happening? And I think that's why this conversation is interesting, because the Great Reset is part of the resistance to that thing
The
that we are
human.
trying to characterize.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's in the face of resistance that something can grow, something spiritual can grow. So I think that's why these conversations are potentially exciting and illuminating, if we can grasp out of the present moment what it is that one could, what other elements of what one could set against this. And maybe even against is the wrong word, because it's not, I don't think it's about,
despite this.
maybe despite is a better word. Despite what's going on. So not like, although I think, demonstrations and protest, we've seen all kinds of demonstrations and protests. And again, I think whether it's for trade unions or whether it was against the lockdowns, or the truckers in Canada
and the rest of Europe.
This is also something incredible. The people that you meet, the new people that come into your life in the last 2 years because of historical events. I think this is, I mean, it's you and I
True.
know each other in the face of a struggle against what has been going on. And I think
spurred on by such.
In the face of resistance, there's some great German quote about this. I can't remember what it is, but in the face of danger, something like the saving spirit also arises.
That's the Northern European initiation, isn't it? That's something very unique to Northern Central Europe, that type of initiation where one would cross a chasm on a hair's breadth to put one's life in danger as a spiritual initiation.
Yeah, and I always loved that in Steiner when he talks about spiritual training, and he says seek out for yourself experiences where you will test yourself, like purposefully, like difficult experiences. Seek them out in life, whatever they are, but
put yourself on the stage when you're terrified of public speaking.
Yeah,
for example.
Do a video in a park where you're looking over your shoulder every 2 minutes.
In case somebody thinks you're weird.
Terrified as someone with a golden Labrador, golden retriever.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's because I remember in 2020 there was something about the position of Mars at the time in astrology, and it said, in the face of everything that's going on, some people are going to feel this great desire, this drive to do something. Now, the question is what? How do you respond to what's going on? How do you, and for some people, it is saying, I know, I heard a story yesterday from a friend of ours, had to emigrate to Paraguay from Germany. Yeah, simply because authorities didn't like this person's stance.
Oh gosh.
As a doctor.
Right.
And
you're not welcome anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just some of these stories are just incredibly incredible stories. And anyway, so the 100 years, the Michaelmas time, that's the time where we're at now. And the question is, can we sense what is spiritually in the air around us waiting as a kind of new impulse? And how would we characterize that? So, I mean, maybe that's the theme, perhaps for another talk. Maybe we can come back to that, and maybe we can think about that this week, and maybe bring some of that next week, because it's a big subject, I think. But
I think it's a nut, in a sense, like the autumn nut, that 100 years of anthroposophy we can look at, particularly. What is that essential nut that we can now plant for it? Because those 100 years have gone. We have robots now. Do you know what I mean? We have the digital. That was not around 100 years ago. So even though the whole economics course is relevant now, spot on, you can take everything in it as a new, the essential essence. That I think that's to me at the moment, that's kind of thing, to boil it down. What is its nut that will then flourish in new soil?
Yeah, there was something I just wanted to say. You just reminded me about the time 1922. The other thing that I thought was interesting. I was aware all the year through of the East-West Congress or conference of 1922, that where you had Dunlop and Stein and Polzer-Hoditz working on this, working to bring together this impulse, this East-West idea of East-West. And this whole geopolitical configuration has changed so much all year. I was thinking, how do we understand now this sense of East-West? And it's only now, as we get to Michaelmas, that I'm starting to get a sense for it. And that's simply been, and you've been part of this in the last couple of weeks, just connecting up with people in India, yeah, and people in Malaysia, and people out in, and again, this is something that's just come out of life itself, trying to seek out, find other people that are looking to do things. And for whatever reason, it's coming from,
it's happening. Yeah,
it's that sense of now we can link up with people in Asia in a way that wasn't possible before. So I think, again, that's another element of this 100 years thing. And again, we might have to go into that another time, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, I think that's really interesting because the 100 years, the Anglo-American establishment had a kind of 100 years from 1914 or so, and that coming to the end of the empire, etc., the Queen's dead, etc., etc., the Elizabethan age is over. India has, the East-West question, that is still the battleground. What's the set holding the center, and the Western side, sort of trolling against Russia and then saying that international community is joining us against the bad Russia. And now you have, for example, India saying, no, we're not. We've had enough of your colonialism. That 100 years, so India's now fully able to stand on its own in the world stage, sovereign, out of the shadow of the Anglo-American establishment. And so, it's this seed thing. The Anglo-American century is over. What have we given to the world, beyond materialism? What spiritual fruit is there? And this is the communication that you're talking about. Now we can offer some fruits, because that English empire, that century, that Anglo-American establishment, that's coming to an end. That it had its 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, global trade routes, but okay, that's part of that British Empire, American heritage.
Oh, the heritage is still there. Yeah, everything, all the good stuff as well as bad stuff that came out of that.
But my impulse is always to connect with the cultural and the spiritual heritage, and for me, of course, that's at the forefront is Rudolf Steiner and Anthroposophy, and the poets and the thinkers who I would say are also along those lines, progressive people looking progressively along those lines. So
well, the East is looking at the West, and they've had 100 more years of Western materialism, and they're saying, what have you actually given us? Do you know what I mean? They're really kind of, what have you actually done for the world? And this is, so what?
Yeah, no, I understand. I agree with you, and I have a great love for the countries in Asia, and always have done, because in a human way, because I sense there's a positivity there that we don't have anymore. And I think it's a sad thing to say, but I don't. That's something that I perceive. I perceive in many ways a very sick society in many of our societies in the West, and the positivity and the drive to actually do something, and the sense I get from, you know, when I talk to young people out in Asia
They
is
have opportunity. They're
very
looking at opportunity.
very positive towards the future,
That's
and
fantastic.
that's what I'd like to, you
But
know.
that's great, because if you think that, so we're coming to our old age, as it were, you know, in a phase, and what can we offer to the young? Because they're young again now. They have opportunity ahead of them, whereas we feel it. You know, ours have crumbled and are being swamped. It's over. I don't mean personally. I just mean as the West. Do you know what I mean? We're decadent. I
Yeah, it is. I mean, on the other hand, there is a lot of freedom that has given people, some people in the West, to lead, to do work in the arts, and to, so that there are things that have come out of that.
It's not a bad thing. It's just a cycle, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, that's going to change, but um that's, I think that's the interesting thing, seeing where that impulse of history will develop. And I guess just at the moment, it's just, I think it's about real practical, realistic relationships that one builds. You know, it's not theoretical. Oh, you know, Asia sounds quite nice theoretically, and I like the pictures, and I went there on holiday. But how about you actually meet people from there and start doing business with them? Yeah,
Right.
meet them, go out there, find out what it's like in their villages, in their town,
Right.
and actually say, look, is there something that we can do for both? I mean, travel, okay, there's travel, there's tourism, but also education,
Mhm.
because I've had the good grace to have lived in the West, and I spent years and years reading about Tibetan Buddhism. And so part of my impulse is to say, look, I can go out there and teach you. Again, you don't want to go out. It's not like you're going out there arrogant, teaching someone about their own history. But this is,
You can
again,
tap
it's
in, you
not.
can relate to it, you can tap into it.
Yeah, you
It's
can.
not an alien thing to you.
It's not like. I mean, put it this way. I know it's like a funny analogy, but if there was a guy from Kathmandu, yeah, who was an expert on Shakespeare, yeah, okay, if let's say his English was okay, yeah, and he could come over and give lectures and stuff, would you think he was arrogant if he came
No, I'd love to
over?
hear
Would
that
you go to
perspective.
his course? Of course you
Yeah,
would,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it would be like, wow, how did you get interested in Shakespeare? And it's like,
And what can you
why?
see in it that we can't?
And then
What
we
can
come
we-
we come into all the anthroposophical themes of, well, why are you interested in? And then from anthroposophy we say, well, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. Yeah, from anthroposophy we'd say, well, maybe you had a relation to this part of the world,
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
or there's something in your family. I mean, I then
Yeah.
found
So,
later that my family, the Fraser part of my family, was out in northern India collecting art in the Mughal Empire. That's what the Frasers did out there.
hmm.
And
Collecting
again,
in what way?
huh?
So,
Collecting art
in
in
what way?
a good way, in a
Oh,
good
good.
way. So they were before the British came in, and there was, you know, a lot
Traders, art traders.
a lot of bad things happened out there.
A lot of good. I mean, look at the cultures. Like, it's the
But
modern
if
world.
that was then preserved by, you know, so the one of the benefits of, I mean, the benefits of colonialism. I mean, it's a touchy subject, but um, I don't know. I mean, I felt proud that at least they caring for that art of the place. I don't know.
We're all human beings, and we all have our time in the sun. And do you know what I mean? We just take turns. There's nothing to be ashamed of about colonialism, because at least it's not blatant genocide, which, 2000 years ago, people didn't worry. You would just move into a new territory and kill everyone. Do you know what I mean? We have evolved. Even if we make complaints about colonialism, we didn't just move in and raise everything to the ground and enslave everyone. I
Well,
mean, it is an advance
actually, the
on the
British
way
did
it
do
used to be done.
that.
We
Well,
didn't
yeah.
we didn't walk into all the cities and cut everyone's head off. Do you know what I mean? And just total genocide. It was like, your culture. Let's do something. We are the rulers, yes, but
But the point, I think,
in a big perspective,
the point
progress.
I was trying to make is, although a lot of what's we're doing here is this is online, and a lot of all of our contact has been online. I think the point that I'm making is the possibility of meeting people in other places and potentially doing things in future that are not online but are actually in the physical, in these places. And even
Right.
if business is done online, which a lot of it is now,
Mhm.
it's not to hold back from that, because again, that I think I'm bringing the point with the Fraser example is that the last 2 years have been an exploration of my own connections back to India and to that part of northern India. And then by coincidence, the people that I meet now, and someone I'm working with now, is out in Delhi. Yeah. And again, it's that part of India. And my first wife was from Calcutta, and their family was also in northern India. And I just find it fascinating the way that karma or life is woven. And again, I think that's part the anthroposophical view of things, is to say, take an interest in what comes to you in life. Ask questions about how you're connected to a place, not just your local environment, but the way that the world speaks to you. And I think that's part of, and again, our relationship, the fact, you're down in Rome, I'm up here, near Basel, and that's also something that it's important, I think, to ask questions about. What is it? I mean, what is it that drove you or led you or resulted in you being in Rome, for example? I've never been to Rome. I've been to um, Milan and Assisi, but it's the big one. I've never been down there.
Well, autumn's a good time to come.
Yeah,
You should come down.
yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
last time I drove down through Italy, it was in the summer. It's 35 degrees in the car, no air conditioning. And I literally was falling asleep. It was just too hot. I was literally dropping off at the wheel. So I had to get about 2 or 3 extra sugary coffees.
Mhm.
And that just about got me through. But
So how are we wrapping up?
well, that's it really. I mean, we covered, I think, all the different points. Obviously, we'll come back to like we said, I think, to just hold on the back burner, how would we characterize this new impulse? And I mean, I'll try and put these videos up tonight. And
That's a really difficult question to me, because I find my where I am with that, but I don't feel able really I don't feel like I have a handle on the more general perspective of that.
Yeah, we
Because
don't have to. I
not in the
mean,
positive sense. I can see it in the negative, what's going on with that. But I'm not, I don't have enough of a grasp of the general trends, now, and how they are now heading forward to the future, because everything's so, I don't mean up for grabs, but so different because of the digital, because of meta worlds, because of robots,
yeah.
because of this technology. It's there's
Well, I think,
huge,
it's certainly something that, my idea is to, put these up, and I'm sure that we'll have debates ongoing and post some stuff during the week, and we can see where we're at to next week. I think that's what's
yeah,
interesting, to
right,
see how it develops in the meantime.
okay.
So